This is my 2025 Kia EV6, and we are doing an update on our long-term coating test. We put 10 different ceramic coatings on this vehicle's paint, 2 different coatings on the glass, and 4 different coatings on all of the wheels. Today is update number 2. We just had a big snowstorm here in Colorado. The roads were a mess. This thing's filthy, so I figured I would bring you guys along and show you some pretty wild updates that I'm seeing here on the car. I'm starting to see some front runners emerge. So welcome back, and let's jump into it. Well guys, truth be told, this has to be my favorite series I have ever done on this channel. I think this is just extremely interesting. We are not just ceramic coating a hood and then, leaving it outside and washing it every so often. We are actually using this on a real vehicle. Now again, remember, like I just said, we put 10 different ceramic coatings on the paint. All of those ceramic coatings have a chance to be on the upward facing areas as well as the downward facing areas that get a lot of that brutal action we have here in Colorado. We've coated all the wheels with different ceramic coatings, 3 of them being dedicated wheel coatings, 1 of them being a dedicated paint coating, and we also actually split up the glass, driver side versus passenger, with 2 different glass coatings. Now, the thing I'm really liking about this is the first video we did, I was able to tell you a little bit about how they installed. The next update video was to look at the hydrophobics, and we could already see some differences between extremely tight beading, coatings that have a little bit more sheeting characteristics, and everything in between. Now, the whole concept of this series is not only to figure out which ceramic coating you guys should spend your money on, but to just compare them back to back. I think this is the only way to properly do a ceramic coating test, is to put it on a car, drive it in the real world, maintain it like somebody would, and see what actually works. Now, I don't think this is the end-all be-all definitive test because everybody's got a different climate. Colorado here is extremely harsh. You can see this car was perfectly clean before our snowstorm, and it is absolutely covered in dirt and grime. We've got salt leaching out all over here. Now, it's not as bad in terms of salt as you guys would see up in the northeast area, but this for Colorado, lots of mag chloride. They do put salt brine down in different cities here, and it's been through an absolute mess here. One thing I want to tell you guys though, I'm going to pop open the door here. We're going to talk about each one of these ceramic coatings. I am already starting to see some serious front runners. Now, I've quickly opened the door here so we can get some actual sunshine on this side of the vehicle because I started to notice a coating that was really impressing me. And the thing that I noticed the other day, my car was sitting out in the sunshine and I was like, what the heck is that line in my car? Then I realized, hey, we're doing this impressive ceramic coating test, and one of these coatings looks a whole hell of a lot cleaner than the other ones. So I want to show you down what we have on this side. So we've got crystal serum light right here. You can see everything is dirty and filthy. Yes, ceramic coated cars do get dirty. This is not magic snake oil that you never have to wash your car again. You can clearly see that here. Down this side, we've got Armor Detail Supplies quartz coating. We've got their Pro Quartz coating here. So I basically split the doors down in half, coated this side with their non-pro coating, this side with their pro coating. This is Clean by Pan the Organizer's 8-year coating. Seeing any difference here? Because this is CarPro UK 3.0. Now the thing is pretty wild about this. I think you can clearly see a big distinction of which coating there is actually looking the cleanest, and that would be its self-cleaning characteristics. You can visibly see that this panel is definitely cleaner than a panel like back here with C-Quartz UK 3.0 and the Armor Detail Supplies Pro Quartz coating. It is a big difference. Now again, it's not perfectly clean, but I think that illustrates how interesting this test is, that we have very high strength ceramic coatings here, and we're already seeing, just barely a month into actually doing this test, some already big differences. Now for today's video, I'm going to wash this a little bit differently than I normally would. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. Typically a car that is as dirty as this, or pretty much any time I'm washing a car, I'm going to take a dry vehicle like this, I'm going to foam it down, and then I'm going to let it sit there, break down the dirt, break down the grime, rinse the vehicle off, refoam it, and do a contact wash. Now you could do that either with a pH neutral shampoo or an alkaline based pre-shampoo, something like Labo Cosmetica Primus 2.0, Bolt Hammer Touchless, something like that. I am not doing that today because I want to see the self-cleaning abilities of each one of these ceramic coatings. So we're just gonna rinse them down with a pressure washer and see if we see any sort of distinctions. Now in the future, I'm sure we'll still do the foam rinse foam mentality. I just think it'll be interesting to see with all of that mag chloride, how well these coatings clean up by just rinsing it with clear water. Now I wanna quickly walk around the vehicle because the interesting thing I noticed, other than Pan's coating on that door over there, I really see very little distinctions actually. The car in general looks very dirty. And again, we've also got Pan's coatings in other areas, and I'm not seeing that big of a difference, which is really intriguing. So you can see the front passenger side wheel up here looking absolutely filthy, just dirt and grime all over this car. Down this side, not seeing any sort of distinctions between any of the ceramic coatings. Again, the rear wheel here looking about the same as the front, no real distinctions. This area always stays quite clean on the EV6, which is why this ceramic coating takes up this entire area. So it sees the clean side as well as this very dirty area. One thing I love about the EV6 is that you have this very hard body line here. So a lot of the wake that we talk about from rain or salt or snow, all of that stuff, typically you'll see it come off the front wheel, it'll trail down to here, and that's an area you'll see a lot of sheeting on ceramic coatings, whereas the top section's beat up. This has almost like a perfect line, so you get a very dirty area. I understand this is dirty here, but this traditionally stays quite a bit cleaner. Now on the back here is really interesting because again, Pan's coating is right here, ADS Pro is right here. I see absolutely no difference there. I see no difference between these ceramic coatings either, or these ceramic coatings here, and this one down here. Everything is filthy, and again, it's really interesting. On this side, that is definitely the cleanest panel on the vehicle, where that little rectangle is that we coated. Now on the driver's side rear wheel, again, still looking about the same, all down here. Very, very filthy. It's also interesting, this panel seems to be cleaner on the painted area versus this piano black plastic. I see zero distinction there, but pretty interesting to say the least. And then up front here, again, still looking really, really dirty. So let's get down to rinsing. I'm gonna walk you through where each one of these ceramic coatings are. I'll show you the differences in our first rinse, then I'll foam it, I'll do our contact wash, and we can look at the hydrophobics after the fact. Now, again, I just want to reiterate this. This is not traditionally how I would wash a car. Normally I would foam it. We're just going to rinse it here, and I want to show you the differences between the ceramic coatings. So up here, we've got Armor Detail Supply's non-pro coating. We've got their pro coating right here on this portion of the hood. Clean by Pan's 8-year, as well as Infinite Base Type 1 over here. They're certified pro level only ceramic coating. We've got Adams Graphene Advanced in this particular area. We've got Crystal Serum Light in this area. This half of it coated with Exo V5 on top of it. And then we've got Geon Mo's Evo. Okay, so far on the hood, not seeing any sort of difference. Hydrophobics look basically essentially the same between those 4 different ceramic coatings. Let's check the front bumper here. Should be noted, this is gloss black PPF, of which I did not coat. This has a hydrophobic top coat on it. That's omitted from the test. We're just focusing on the front bumper here. All right, so this is an interesting distinction. This is Crystal Serum Light in this area versus Exo V5. You can see how much this sheets, which is interesting. Look at how much more water is on this side with Exo V5 than over here. That's to say, sheeting coatings are not necessarily a bad thing. This still has good water behavior on it, but it's definitely a sheeter rather than a beater. Cool, looking good up there. All right, on this front passenger area here, we've got crystal serum light on the mirrors all the way up here, splitting half the roof. We'll show you what the mirror looks like versus ADS Pro on that side. Back here, we've got Geon Mo's Evo, we've got Geon Infinite Base Type 1, and Seaquartz UK 3.0. So I think you guys can clearly see here while I'm rinsing this entire area is what we would call flooded. So that means there's lots of contamination in there and it's due for a hand wash. That makes sense after all the mag chloride, dirt, salt brine that's actually on here is all the traffic film and all of that fun stuff. Up here, the coatings essentially look the same, but again, you see that wake down here. You can clearly see it on this line. All right, moving to this passenger rear door now, we have this entire panel coated with crystal serum light, split halfway down the middle with XOV5. I think you're gonna see some differences here. You can already see up here how the CSL, more of a sheeter versus the heavy beating characteristics of XOV5 from G-Technic. And you can see this panel up here flooded, all flooded down here. I would say realistically looking very, very similar, other than up here where you can see some clear distinctions. This panel here, you can follow this all the way down into this rear quarter. That is Adams Graphene Advanced. I'll do my best to rinse this, then we can compare the ones at the back. So you can clearly see there, very similar to the sides. This is sheeting quite a bit. You'll see some beading throughout, but overall starting to sheet. Again, remember, we have contamination in there, hence we need to actually physically wash this car. All right, let's rinse down this rear section. ADS Pro over here, clean by Pan's 8-year, ADS Non-Pro down here. Very interesting. Look at the amount of contamination and how little this is actually beading versus Pan's coating over here. Again, ADS Pro coating over here. Wow, that's a huge distinction there, folks. That is pretty darn wild. How about down here with ADS Non-Pro? All right, fully flooded down there. Kind of what I would expect. This is really impressive performance by Pan's 8-year coating here. This has the most amount of beading behavior we have at the rear end here. Curious to see Adams Pro Line Defend ceramic coating here. How's this going to stack up? So I would say a little bit different area here than Pan's, but you can see starting to hold on to that water a little bit more. I would just subjectively say though, this side does have a little bit better water behavior than Adams Advanced over there, which I guess technically could make sense. I don't have a fear that any of these ceramic coatings though, being that they are sheeting quite a bit, won't come back with a contact wash. All right, on the rear passenger door, yet again, Seaquartz UK 3.0, Pan the Organizer's 8-year coating. I'll try and keep this in its own bubble here, then we can compare to all 4 of them. All right, big distinction here. Completely flooded panel. You can still see some nice water behavior here from Pan's coating. I will say though, I do think the AR635 for a lot of these coatings here, this is, over 3 gallons per minute, is kind of overwhelming them. But again, you can see the tight water beading here versus that sheeting. Even though on Pan's down here, it does flood the panel quite a bit. So let me continue to rinse this. But you can see it very clearly comes back very quickly. This test Guys, this is so freaking cool. Even up here, you can see just this little wake here where Pan's job was doing quite a bit better job at doing self-cleaning characteristics versus the Seaquartz UK 3.0. You can see a clear distinction. On the driver's side front door here, we've got Armor Detail Supply's Pro Quartz coating, the regular quartz coating, as well as Crystal Serum Light here in this particular area. So pretty interesting distinctions here. Obviously, this particular area is a little bit harder on this coating versus the Pro coating back here. But again, down the side, you're seeing lots of flooding in the panel. I'm going to back this up because I'm curious to see what ADS's Pro coating looks like over Pan's coating. Yeah, I think you can clearly see Pan's coating still the absolute beater here. Now, again, the interesting thing down here, this piano black on Pan's side is not beating whatsoever. So really interesting distinctions there. This does come back into some beads, but I wouldn't say the ADS Pro coating is better than anything I've seen from some of the other ones, but just a really interesting distinction. So far though, I would say just at rinsing this vehicle down, Pan's coating looks the best by quite a bit. This is Armor Detail Supply's wheel coating. So you can see in certain areas it's getting pretty flat. That means we've got a lot of contamination in there. Very traditional with ceramic coatings. Doesn't mean that it's failed. Once you go through in and actually clean this up, which we will be doing, it should come right back. This passenger side rear wheel here has CarPro Deluxe on it. And as you can see, basically the entire thing is flooded with water. So a little bit different than the ADS Pro up front. Being that this is on the rear axle, I would kind of expect this with all the crud that the front wheel is actually kicking up. Now keep in mind throughout this process with these ceramic coatings, we will flip-flop and rotate these. So this will be on the front axle, ADS Pro will be on the rear axle. I got a little missed on this wheel, but this is C5 wheel armor here from G-Technic. Wow, there is not even a hint of a ceramic coating there. Moving on now to our final wheel. This actually has Clean by Pan the Organizer's 8-year coating on it. So definitely seeing a little bit of sheeting in areas like this. I can see it on certain parts of the actual wheel spokes, which is how the wheel is rotating. Most of it beating very good. You can see the barrels though completely flooded with water. So the face I would say is arguably the best, but inside the barrel, the most amount of contamination, arguably I would say looks no different than any of the other wheel coatings. So some very interesting distinctions between all of the ceramic coatings here. Next, what I'm going to go do is actually clean up all the wheels. Now I'm going to agitate everything, but we're not going to use a dedicated wheel cleaner. I'm just going to use straight all-purpose cleaner. Especially in this case, there's no real reason to actually do that. I haven't been driving this car hard. There's not a ton of brake dust. We're just going to clean it up with a nice all-purpose cleaner, and we'll see how that goes throughout all of these. Then I'll bring you back. We'll rinse down the wheels. I'll showcase to you guys what the hydrophobics look like after we've agitated and fully cleaned them, compare them between all of each other. Then we'll foam this car down. I'll do my contact wash, bring you back for the final rinse to see how many of these coatings came back with just a contact wash. All right, guys, so I just went through and cleaned our first wheel. This is Armor Detail Supply's wheel coating here. We're using Koch Chemie Green Star here, as you can see down here. We're using it 20-to-1 as our all-purpose cleaner for our wheels as well as our tires. And we are also using DIY Details Incredible Suds Type 2 as just a nice, helpful amount of lubrication. So now let's get this rinsed down. You can see how well the hydrophobics came back or didn't come back. absolutely looking perfect here. So huge difference between our cleaning capabilities there. Again, all the purpose of a ceramic coating is to make things easier to clean. No, this is not something with this level of contamination you can rinse off and it's 100% clean. In fact, all of the wheels actually came out pretty clean before I even started. I am just lightly agitating these things, hitting the barrels. You can see water behavior came back absolutely perfect here on the Armor Detail Supplies wheel coating. Couldn't ask for anything more. Huge thumbs up from me. Let's continue moving on. All right, guys, rinse here on CarPro Deluxe. Yet again, tremendous water behavior that came right back. One subjective note here, I would say the Armor Detail Supplies wheel coating did feel quite a bit slicker, especially using the Rag Company's wheel mitt here. I could just feel that slickness immediately as I'd wipe over it. It would just get really, really nice and slick on the ADS. Not to say this is bad at all by any means, but Hydrophobics came back absolutely perfect. Let's continue on. We're back here with our G-Technic C5 wheel armor, cleaned up the full wheel. Let's get to rinsing. Wow. Okay, so couple of interesting points here. I think you can see a clear distinction between the ADS wheel coating as well as CarPro Deluxe already. This kind of similar to Crystal Serum Light has a little bit of sheeting behavior to it. You can see the water beads aren't quite as tight here. Let me rinse this down again. And you can see it's just got that big sheeting pattern in it. It's not to say this is necessarily worse. It's just to say it's different here. Now, the wheels all cleaned up. I would say once we dry these off, they're probably going to look identical. But if you're looking for a coating that's got those nice tight water beads, I would say this is the least impressive one so far. I would also say so far of the other side, this one has the least amount of slickness feel to it. I would say Deluxe feels slicker, and then the ADS wheel coating feels even slicker. Time to rinse off, clean by Pan the Organizer's 8-year coating. All right, so water behavior, 10 out of 10, amazing, really impressive. I would say subjectively, I think Pan's coating as well as the ADS's wheel coating, both very, very similar. And I would say look about exactly the same. After agitating, I would say no difference. Slickness wise, I would say, man, both of these, we'd be splitting hairs if I were to say one feels slicker than the other. Both are doing a phenomenal job. So I think that's a really interesting distinction between these coatings so far. I would say I'm arguably least impressed by the G-Technic C5 wheel armor so far. I like the nice tight water beads on, the ADS as well as the CarPro Deluxe. This is by far the easiest coating to install, then basically the G-Technic, then ADS, then the CarPro Deluxe being the hardest and trickiest. But phenomenal results here on the wheels. Really interesting test. Let's move on to the paint. Well, guys, this wouldn't be a wash video without me just showing you some snow foam action. So again, we've got our DIY Details Incredible Suds Type 2 in here. Fill this up 2 ounces in our container. By the way, if you're wondering, AR635 foam cannon update, Griot's Boss foam cannon here without any of the metering tips. Seems to be pretty good with this soap and this amount of flow. So So real quick here, again, I'm just foaming this down. I'm gonna let it sit, break down any more of that dirt and grime here. We'll rinse it off, refoam it, start a contact wash. We'll be using the 1 bucket method where I put, 7 to 8 wash mitts in, do a panel, flip it, do the other half of the panel, throw it in the bucket, grab a new one. Safest wash practices. Something really interesting is happening here. Again, I'm going to put up the clip of what the ADS looked like last time we had some snow foam on it, where it clung there, and then over here on the Atom side, it just completely sheeted off, which is really interesting. Now, no difference. Maybe it was some static electricity built up, something like that, I don't know. But I do also want to show you here on the glass. This is an interesting distinction here between the two. It's not to say that the ADS isn't doing that as well, but this is something I noticed when you double stack glass coatings, whereas on the side windows, I rarely ever see that whatsoever. And you can see it's just kind of sheeting down the glass. Actually, this is doing it a little bit here as well. This is traditionally what I'm used to, where you can't see those overlapping motions. Pretty interesting stuff going on there. And the back glass here, seeing no differences. You can see where I basically swiped here. This is applied in a circular motion. So very similar here on the glass coatings this time, which is really interesting. Also, what's interesting, look at this over here. You can see the Armor Detail Supplies regular quartz coating here has sheeted off all of that. The ADS Pro has clung on to that. Pans has really clung on here, and then you can see the C-Quartz sheeting that off. Really, really interesting. Again, I don't necessarily think any of this is good or bad. It's just I'm showing you guys what I'm seeing here in real time. It's just really interesting to see where each and every one of these ceramic coatings are. Again, then the interesting thing, you come up here, you can see Pans coating, really clinging on to that soap. Over here, base type 1 starting to break apart. And then again, what's interesting here, even more so, the ADS Non-Pro really breaking up that soap. Pretty interesting stuff. And down this side, I'm not really seeing any sort of differences. Let's quickly check the rear end. Yeah, all looks about the same. Pretty interesting stuff here, folks. I am absolutely loving this test. All right, so I was rinsing this area back here and want to quickly show you, after just foaming it, letting it dwell, and rinsing it off, DIY Details Incredible Suds. This is, again, why I like doing foam rinse foam, is the detergents, the surfactants in there are actually breaking down all of that road film. And just after doing that, check out the water behavior back here. So you can see the ADS still struggling a little bit, but more of the water behavior came back. Over here on the Atoms really started to come back. Now, interesting, down the doors, it didn't seem to do it quite as much. But yeah, definitely starting to come back. It's better than it was before. So that's the whole rationale of doing foam rinse foam instead of just, rinsing it. We're actually getting quite a bit more cleaning power before we ever even touch it. So time to refoam now. I'll do my contact wash. I'll bring you back and we can check out the hydrophobics on absolutely every single panel. All right, guys, just finished our contact wash. It's pretty crazy. All of these coatings, there's little to no soap remaining on it. Just flushes everything off. So do let me know maybe next time if you do want to see me do the full contact wash. Basically, the last video that I put up, you guys said you liked the length, the way we did it. And I just want to try and keep these a little bit shorter. So let me know. And please, open to any critiques, criticisms, improvements I can make here. I want this to be as much a series for myself, but really a series for you guys as well. So we're going to get to rinsing now, and we're just going to see how everything's looking after our full contact wash. All right, so front end rinse down, everything looking great. The ADS Non-Pro, Pro, Pans coating, base type 1, Mohs, CSL with EXO, and Atoms Advanced, all looking really good. Again, just an interesting distinction there between CSL topped with EXO V5, very, very different. Let's head down this side. Again, this is C-Quartz UK 3.0, Geon Infinite base type 1, Geon Mohs, and CSL on this entire door, EXO at the back. The mirrors also CSL, as well as all the pillars this half of the roof. Wow, really seeing a lot of sheeting here on CSL alone. Again, just very different there. That's pretty interesting. I don't remember CSL being like that. Pretty interesting. Let's head up here to Moe's. So you guys can see all down the door, completely back now. No need for a heavy decontamination, no need for alkaline, no need for acidic soaps here. Just a straight pH neutral soap. The car just needed contact wash. Let's continue on. So back here we've got Adams Graphene Advanced. Wow, that's amazing water behavior there. It's really funny how you can see the surfactants getting washed away as it kind of starts sheeting, and then boom, that beading comes through. Now let's check out this back glass. Again, Adams over here versus ADS. You can still see some of that weirdness with how the coating went. For whatever reason, I don't think the coatings really like this back pane of glass on the EV6. They seem very flat to me. Yeah, it's pretty weird. I'm not sure why that's the case. I installed them exactly the same way, prepped them exactly the same way as the other panes of glass, just pretty interesting. Let's come back here. Again, this was pretty flooded back here, as well as the ADS normal back here. Gotta say, man, Pan's coating's got some serious water behavior. It's not to say ADS doesn't as well. Just notice how much this holds on to water versus Pan's coating here. You can clearly see right when I go over, it just holds on to a little bit more water. Not to say that's worse, just stating facts here of what I'm seeing. Fantastic water behavior down here by the ADS Quartz Non-Pro coating. Let's come over here to the Adams Defend Pro line. Fantastic water behavior there, again by an Adams product. Let me go all the way around. We'll rinse these 4 panels down. Back here on the driver's side, Quartz UK, Pans, ADS Pro, ADS Non-Pro, CSL over here. And then all the pillars as well are ADS Pro. All the glass is their glass coating. So interesting to see Pans next to Quartz there. Now, I do need to say here, again, I also think some of these coatings are just completely and absolutely overwhelmed by the AR635. Again, over 3 gallons per minute here. You can see water behavior there is still great on Quartz, but then again, it's crazy. You put it next to Pans here. Look at this. So you can see it does better the farther away. And then it's just so much water you can overwhelm it there. But again, I would say water behavior performance, Pan's looking better than Quartz there. Wow, look at that. ADS Pro, baby. Damn, ADS Pro looking really, really nice. Look at these Pans versus ADS here. And then you got Crystal Serum Light just doing its sheeting thing. ADS Pro looking phenomenal there on the side of the door against Pans. Those are both looking great. Their non-pro coating looking really, really nice there as well. Man, this is such a fun test, guys. Such a fun test. I know I'm going to say it a million times. This is the nerd level 9000 stuff that I live and breathe for. It keeps me up at night, but I get up the next day knowing that I get to do cool shit like this on YouTube for you guys. So I'm gonna dry the car now. Keep in mind, yeah, I still got some soap there. I'll rinse it off. Keep in mind what I'm doing here is not using any drying aids. So I basically just take a nice rag company towel, dry it down. The reason I don't want to use drying aids, I don't want to add anything to these coatings to affect the water behavior of these. So again, during out this process on this particular car, what we're doing is just washing it with pH neutral soap. If it needs a decon, we'll give it a decon. Like if coatings start to fail, then we'll need to do a decon. But in general, we're gonna hand wash it. We're not gonna add any sort of protection to this because that would just completely ruin the test. So I'm gonna dry this down and yeah, I'll give you some final thoughts. Well guys, this has been a really interesting and fun video to play around with and see how these coatings are doing. I have some thoughts while I was drying this car off camera here that I wanna share with you guys. So clearly, I think we can see there's definitely a little bit of a front runner here. Clean by Pan the Organizer's 8-year coating, I would say, is arguably doing the best job so far. You could see when this car came in here dirty, it was clearly the cleanest panel. When we rinsed it, it had the best water behavior. But I want you guys to understand a little bit about when we talk about clogged ceramic coatings. As you guys were seeing on multiple of the coatings down the side of the door, where the coating is sheeting quite a bit, that doesn't mean the coating's dead. All of that means is, you know, all the crap getting kicked up on your car, you figure the oil, the road salt, coolant that's on the road, all of that stuff is sitting on your car on top of that coating, and like oil and water, they don't interact very well. So it's not the coating that's beating, it's all that other crap that is on top of your vehicle. So going in, doing your contact wash, removing that layer of film to actually see what's under it is impressive. And why I say Pan's coating is so impressive is because clearly it's keeping the car cleaner, and doing a clear water rinse, you can clearly see the coating is doing its job by releasing all of that dirt. So that's my impression there. And yeah, it's really, really impressive against some serious contenders right next to it. Now, throughout the car, I am also impressed with a lot of these coatings. ADS Pro Quartz coating, really impressive. ADS Normal coating, really impressive. And Adams Graphene Advanced is really impressive with the tight water behavior. After I foamed it down, the water behavior basically immediately came fully back, and that is really impressive. I think the one that is kind of surprising me most is Crystal Serum Light by G-Technic. I don't personally remember that coating being much of a sheeter. You guys let me know what your experience is with that. Again, we're using an AR635 here, and it's just so much water for some of these coatings. But yeah, it's really interesting, especially when you put it right next to XOV5 on top of it. The water behavior is absolutely completely different. And from what I understand doing my research and trying to remember, XOV5 is the hydrophobic top coat that goes on kind of that base layer. Now, again, it's not to say CSL is bad. It's still doing its job there. It's just interesting how different they are. My last and final thought here that I had while I was drying is, you know, we can sit here and talk all day about the performance of a coating, the water behavior of it. At the end of the day, I did the same exact process to every single one of these coatings, whether it's on the wheels, whether it's on the glass, on the paint, and we got to the end result. And I think that's also an interesting fact here, that I didn't do anything special to any one of these coatings or one single panel, and they all are looking how they're looking. So I am just having the absolute time of my life filming this video because, or this entire series, because this is the kind of stuff that I sit here and think about off camera and do off camera and just play around with products. And I think it is extremely cool to be able to do that with you guys here on YouTube. Last point I want to make here, any sort of consideration of how long these videos you want them to be, what kind of stuff you want to see in them. Do you want me to, you know, use alkaline pre-washes frequently, less frequently? I don't know. Like, just let me know. It's been a fun one. We'll see you in the next one soon. Bye-bye.